Hello, dear mentors, and welcome to meeting one, January 17 for winter 2024. This is called Along the Way. And what I'm showing you is the teaching guide for this meeting one, which you, of course, can consult in our website in the teaching resources, also linked in many different places. So let's get started. This is the agenda, so you make sure you know where to go, either car, later, or via. These are the rooms. It's all at UCI. It's going to be from 2 to 3:50. We know some of you mentors can only do maybe 1 hour or 1 hour and a half. So just keep constant communication with us if anything changes. Also very important, if you cannot make it to the meeting, please contact your LA or in Canvas. Just email us the day before, hopefully, or in advance so that we know and we can accommodate. So please communicate with your commenters and with the LAs many times. So this is the teaching guide, as I was saying. It's in PDF and slides. Let's take a look. It's going to be divided in two parts, and usually that's how we do it in the agenda. So the kids arrive around 2, but of course things can change. There's going to be an introduction. Your LA, your classroom leaders will conduct this. And then we form teams. So we split into tables, and you may be mentoring maybe 4 students, maybe 6 students, who knows, sometimes 8 or a little more. So it can get a little difficult sometimes at the beginning, especially in meeting one, but hopefully you'll have a great team of LAs and also commenters that can help you along. What are the topics for this meeting one? Mathematically, we are talking about units of length, conversions, proportions, and also expressions and equations, and solving linear equations, very basic linear equations, using trial and error or visual methods. So we'll get a look at those. And also enrichment wise, so what are we beyond the math or complementing the math? What are we looking for? Mostly bonding with our students. That's the number one goal to this meeting, that you can establish some connection with hopefully all your students, particular personal things. So that's really important. Setting expectations, that's the second most important goals, because we'll have 9 meetings in winter, so a lot of meetings, and it's very important that you have a functional table, functional group, where behavioral problems do not appear much, and if they appear, you know what to do and you are prepared. You can count of us, the teachers, the commenters, the LAs, also the Daniel, Alessandra, Vien, Randy, all the team, Jeffrey, that's behind there. Also our outreach assistants. So that's really important. You are not alone. Giving students voice. So we're not doing tutoring or lecturing in which we just throw all the data, all the math facts, and then we just leave. We are actually doing these meetings student-centered, in which they talk. They do most of the talking, and you are more like a guide or a conductor, right? Of course, you model things that should be done, but the important thing is that they participate and they have a voice, both in terms of the math that they do and the personal things and how they connect them. And finally, working as a team, really important in meeting one. Of course, you can do competitions, which is part of also working as a team, because you just get better at looking how people work, right? So you can do competition, also cooperation. At some points, you could do just teams of 2 or even individual moments. So that's totally fine. But always aim for, viewing us as a team that we are learning together. That's really important also as a goal. So you can read a little bit about this when you have in your free time. Long and longer, the first part, it's about brainstorming our quarter expectations and agree of them as a team. We're also going to play a math icebreaker games, learning things about our students, and more games, spinners. During this part, we want to practice the value of building relationships. So that's the main goal there. Of course, you don't know your students. If you're a returning mentor, maybe you do. But if you're a new one, then build the relationships with your mentors. And we'll talk more in coaching, of course, about that. And then part 2 is going to be led by your classroom leaders. So they will have the task of sharing the quarter expectations. Everybody will share. And then they'll lead an activity of wingspans in which everybody will participate, both you and the students. Let's take a look at the math goals so that you know. In terms of expression and equations, writing and evaluating, hopefully mentally, numerical expressions that use several numbers. Those numbers will be through dice rolls and operations. Given a target number, really approximate it. So build expressions that get closer and closer to that value. In particular, this is going to be the value 66.66. And then using simple equations with one unknown, just one unknown, and different strategies to find or approximate the value of the unknown. So this is for expressions and equations. And then the topic of units of length, which will be model, this is just an introduction because in meeting 2, we will do much more about this. So this is just the start. We will relate units of length with linear measures of objects in the real world, including our bodies and the things we see. And finally, use physical objects, visual aids, and equations to make conversions between different units of length, feet, yards, meters, etc. So these two topics kind of blend or intersect. So at some point, you'll be using expressions and equations for these conversions. We also have some enrichment goals about appreciating the life stories of our students, empowering to ask lots of questions, framing the principles for what we want to do in the quarter, and discuss why this is important, so the norms of the expectations, and encourage everyone to follow our agreements with kindness but persistence. So we want to be strict, but in a kind way. It's not about punishment necessarily, but more about the positive things we want in the meetings and the commitment for everyone. So it's really key to have this from meeting 1. Otherwise, it's really hard to mend if it's broken from meeting 1 and you didn't have the expectation of what you want your students how to behave during the meetings. Let's keep going. So again, you can read out a little bit about how to be warm and welcoming and build relationships. So practical tips such as listening to people with your undivided attention, really important. So if you have a smartphone, for example, then it's not necessarily gonna contribute to this goal. Visibly reacting to ideas with really celebrations when you raise your voice or really smile, either pat on the back. So really simple things that you acknowledge that you value the participation, or follow-up questions, of course. And not falling in the background, so being part of the meeting, interrupting your mentor, your commenter, thinking that you're making an impact, right? That if you didn't come today, it would have been very different. So don't be a ghost, really participate. Put your voice. There's many ways to contribute, talking to an individual student that you need help, etc. Okay. Of course, you may be shy or anxious, but I think it's important to try to break it again from meeting 1. If not, then meeting 2 or so. We have some other tips, even more concrete with examples about being warm and welcoming and really engage your students. And so let's talk a little bit about part 1, long and longer now, which is the part that you'll actually do with your students. You'll start with a warm welcome in which you meet your students. And this breaks into 3 activities. The first one is sort of free, called presentations. Then there's the icebreaker game, and finally talking about the norms. So let's talk a little bit about it in the warm welcome part. The presentations is just a small talk, sharing stories, things like that. Then the 66.66 game, it's all about building expressions, but along the way, people share 2 things, one false and one true. So this is a typical icebreaker about a true or false. Then the team will guess, and if they guess correct, they get 1 roll or 1 number. And so those numbers are accumulated. It's for the whole team, right? And with those numbers, you start building expressions. For example, if you roll a 3, well, you just have the expression 3, which is very basic expression, very far away from 66.66. But if in the second roll, you roll, for example, a 6, then you can do 3 times 6. So that's 18, and you get closer. So those are the rules to build a single expression using all your values. You have to use them all and start getting closer and closer. So it's a process to 66.66. Okay, everyone will collaborate. So it's a back and forth between math and also personal things and stories. And so you have to balance those and give importance to those. I would give a little more importance to the sharing part, because if you forget about that, then you will not be finding out your students. But it's also true that your students may be really engaged in the game, so that's also something positive to value. So you can bond with them. And lots of opportunities to teamwork, in the sense that maybe a student has an expression and another is discussing with that student, and maybe a third student kind of blends the strategies and has a better idea. So lots of discussion, and thinking of it not as my expression, but the expression that my team is building. This may be simple for some of your students on your table, so you could change it to either like even harder numbers or expressions. So that's how it goes. Then let's jump into the good norms. So you'll bring 2 norms. So you'll anticipate that and bring them to the meeting. And your mentors will actually write these 2 norms here and sign to agree to them. So it's kind of a like official thing, which is important. I think when people write things, there's a memory issue and also a commitment thing, that it's more likely that they actually commit. Then they'll also, it's like a give or take, right? If you ask them to sign this, then they can also ask you to, so write something you want from your mentors, right? A demand. So challenge me, call me by blah, 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 give me time to think. Things that they demand, that it's good teaching, and that's reasonable, of course. So if they agree, you will sign here as mentors. This will be with a partner. And then there's a respect pledge that we have at UCI. This may change during the quarter, but we'll start from these 5, postulates. Respect personal space, show respect to my LAs, stay on task. The markers are mathematical tools, so only use them for math. That's really important, because otherwise you'll be losing them mathematically. And finally, stay safe and do not run during the break, because they can go out of the classroom. So that's it. You'll also have some agreements to share. So you can put here, you can use this space to put like a summary, right, of agreements for your table. And of course, the manual has some links and extra information on how can you actually create these norms of expectations. Also, the enrichment homework talks about it, so you'll be well prepared for this. The second part is called Spin It. Let's not go over too much on it, but there's a spinner that gives you spin it twice, and it gives you 2 units. For example, foot versus inches, or quarters versus yards, or a tower versus a jump up. And those tower and jump up, those 2 are kind of weird measures. So for example, the towers, it depends on your table. If all in your table, mentors and students, would make a human tower, each one stands in the shoulders of the previous one, that would be the measure that we would call 1 tower, right? So it could be maybe, I don't know, 5 meters, or it depends, right? A big one. And then you'll create an equation such as, oh, you also rolled a die. So say you spin feet and meter. When you spin this spinner twice, you also roll a die. You got 2. You create an equation however you like it. It's a very simple one. For example, 2 meters equals to, and then you put a question mark. So that's the unknown. And then you make sense of this equation. Kids don't need to really have done linear algebra or anything like that. It's more about making sense of this, talking about it. So 2 meters, it's how many feet? They'll brainstorm things that are 2 meters long, such as a tall person or the neck of a giraffe, etc. This is just to get a sense. And then you'll have some manipulatives or diagrams. There's lots of ways to solve for it. Some equations may be easy, some may be harder. And this is not really equals necessarily, but approximately equal. So it's important also to say that we're approximating and we're estimating, which is very interesting because maybe kids from school may be used to only exact answers. It depends, of course, on the teacher, and it depends on the curriculum. But maybe they don't think that math is also about approximating and estimating. And it's actually, it has to do a lot with it, right? So especially for life skills where you don't really need an exact answer, but more getting a sense of how, how much approximately. So that's the speed. And again, this is a game that you could just play maybe 1 or 2 rounds if you don't have much time and say, okay, we're going to play next time a more charged version. Okay, so a better version of it. And then that would be the end of part 1. Part 2 will be conducted by the classroom leaders. So you don't have to really prepare the teaching, but you can prepare the modeling in that sense of, okay, when the classroom leaders are telling students to do something, how am I gonna monitor? What am I gonna do? And so we'll talk about it in coaching a little bit, but basically this is about plotting the wingspan of a person. So from hand to hand, right? If I'm a bird, what would be the length of my 2 wings together, so to speak, versus my height. So here's in inches. This is a Zoom version. I'm plotting lots of values and trying to talk about, okay, what happens? So this is the activity. It has a little more to it, but your classroom leaders will conduct it. In the resources, you can take a look at the LA slides and see actually what's going on if you want to participate more during this activity. This is 15 minutes long. So at the end of the teaching guide, we will always have the student workbook, okay? And we will provide this to you and all the students during the meeting, so you don't have to print anything to bring to the Wednesday meeting. In particular, this has 8 pages, and in the first page, it's the recap of the things you would do. So introductions, the game of 66.66, talking about the norms. This game, which you may play a lot or just play a few rounds if you don't have much time, and then wingspans to be done by your LAs. Let me end with some tips for meeting 1, which they're also in the teaching manual. These are general tips that are really important. Arriving early, it's important if you can, otherwise 2 p.m. is fine. You can talk to your LAs or commenters and maybe rehearse a little bit, just setting you up. It's good. You may be nervous, but maybe you can talk to some of us that are. Learn students' names and pronunciations also. That adds to the confidence, right? And of course, if you're a mentor, you also say your name and how you want to be called and how it's pronounced. That's also important. Be hungry to know about them, asking questions all the time. Okay, so you're a curiosity magnet. You really want to know about your students. So all the chances there. Some may be shy. So I think the strategy is, okay, you also tell stories and share things, and then they'll probably be more likely to share once you share. But really, let them know that you want to know about them. If there's behavior problems, which we have had in previous quarters, even in meeting 1 or early meetings, report immediately to the room leaders, which are the LAs or the teachers. But, it's important that you report it, even if you don't know if it's really too serious. But if you just have the idea, okay, there's something that I'm not feeling confident or I'm not comfortable, just take a time out, say to your commenter, I'll be right back, and talk to some of us, really, and just say it. It may be the case that, okay, it's not too bad and it just fixed. but we really want to know that that's really good information to us. Let students know that this is not okay. Also, the reflection homework, which is turned by Friday, you have the chance to give us a more detailed description of, okay, this student said that, I said that, maybe I should have said this other thing, the teacher didn't do anything or did this. So and also let students know that this is not okay, really important. Okay, don't sit down the whole time. You'll give an impression that maybe it's not too exciting to be there, and maybe if you have a really big group, you won't be able to reach some of the students, so move around. When to sit down, maybe when you want to help a particular group of students, maybe two students that are really in this particular mathematical problem, you can sit down, but otherwise just be dynamic. Okay, so I think teachers, it's really important for a teacher that they don't sit down. They have energy and they just move around and move their arms, move their body at all times. Identify experienced mentors in your room, of course, hopefully in your table, but also in your room, and you can ask for help or ask the room leaders for help. Say, I don't know how to explain this. Can you maybe give me a jump start here? That's totally fine. We're there. We're a team. We're a very big team. So the room leaders will certainly help you. Greet students with a smile and stay positive, hopefully the whole time. That's also really important. It may be late in the day and maybe you didn't have the best day yet. We totally understand that, but still try to bring a very positive attitude from the start. Okay, so make an effort, please. Keep constant eye contact with students, and you can also do high fives or fist bumps, like silly things that our students really like, sharing some photo, things like that. Silly things that really connect with your students, right? So think what you would be doing with friends in in a way that you're a mentor and you're sharing positive things and positive behavior. Okay, so you don't have to be like super serious like a tutor and concentrate and just scold them. That's not really what we're looking. We're aiming for like a long-term game in which the student is learning that you are a successful undergrad or high school student or a successful teacher, and they want to learn things by looking at how you interact with people. So there's a lot of learning that's done not by what you say, but your body language, how you talk to the student, and things like that. So they'll pick on those things, and that's why it's important to really connect with them. Finally, don't bring the teaching guide, but you can bring a cheat sheet or something similar. We'll maybe brainstorm resources to give you. But so avoid reading the teaching guide during the teaching or having your laptop or phone at all times, because then that's distracting and doesn't really set up the expectation that we're fully with our students. So engage with your students. It's a precious time. It's gonna go fast. So really important. Okay, so that's the video for meeting one. And of course, it's a bit longer because there's a lot to be explained, especially for new mentors. And we hope you enjoy it. Please comment in Canvas if you have any other questions. Have fun and see you in the next video.